Hi, everyone. I'm here with Dr. Sameh Abolfotouh, a spine surgeon from Dubai and also chairman of AO Spine in that region. He has been graciously kind enough to spend a little bit of time with us this morning to share what's happening in Dubai. Welcome, Sam.
Welcome. Nice talking to you, Dr. Bandari, and thank you for the kind invitation. Pleasure being with you.
Well, great. Thank you again for joining us. And what can you speak to about the situation in Dubai? We've seen the world in various stages of either reopening or in many ways entering a lockdown, depending on where they are with the pandemic issue. Where's Dubai in all of this?
Well, definitely, it's an unusual situation for all of us around the world, and Dubai is no different from the whole world. We started the lockdown from the COVID probably a couple of months ago, where the whole country was under total lockdown for 3 weeks. Everyone stayed home. I believe the people of Dubai at that point, were really cooperative with the government, and they followed the instructions on staying home and everything. And I think the government has implemented very strong regulations when it comes to COVID as well, and that helped with having the number of the patients under control in comparison to different parts of the world as well. As for our practice as spine surgeons or as orthopedic surgeons in general, is definitely a unique situation for us because we were not allowed to go for any elective surgeries probably for the past 3 months unless it's an emergency or a semi-urgent surgery. But I believe it's definitely for the benefit of everyone, and it's definitely a unique situation, but now we're getting to a better situation now where the country is starting to open up again.
So let me just, if I could, ask a couple of more details that would help, I think, a lot of our listeners understand. When you say elective surgery was for the most part canceled, what type, was any elective surgery happening?
Well, they were very specific about the type of elective surgeries that you can run. So, for example, if you have a patient who, like neurosurgeries, were probably exempted from those. So, cancer surgeries, onco surgery, all of those stuff that go under the title of urgent or emergent, not necessarily emergency, but still has some urgency to be operated. All of those surgeries we're running on. Definitely deliveries when it comes to OB/GYN, all of those stuff that can't be stopped and has to be operated anyways.
As a spine surgeon, Sam, I would imagine there still would be a number of urgent procedures, whether it was a decompensation from a tumor or trauma that would have kept you fairly busy. Did you see a big change in your urgent spine practice, or in fact, did you see increases? We've seen differences of opinion around trauma being decreased around the world simply because people weren't on the streets anymore, so they weren't getting injured. But does the same apply for spine?
It does, actually. So as a matter of fact, the number of emergency trauma is definitely much less than before. And that's something that we noticed over the past few weeks. We're still probably running the same number of emergency spine surgeries when it comes to coda equina syndrome. When it comes to tumor cases, those are probably running in the same way they used to be before COVID. But what's interesting is actually not just the surgeries, but the complaints of the patients coming to the clinic are a little bit different than before. So I'm starting to see younger population of back pain patients who are coming to my clinic now. You know, back pain is probably a disease that's affecting everyone, all the generations, all different ages. But it's interesting that over the past few weeks, we have noticed that people who are in the second or third decade of their lives and they're coming to the clinic complaining of back pain, which is pretty unusual. And I have noticed that this is probably because of them staying home all the time, working from home, working on their laptops over their couches over there. So that was pretty interesting and different to the regular population that we usually see in our spine clinics.
Oh, that's actually very interesting. What do you see as the future now? So is this situation going to last in Dubai for months? Some countries are saying that they aren't expecting returning to normal for a year, or at least over a year. What's your perspective on returning to pre-COVID clinical practice?
All right. So I can tell you here in Dubai, the country, or in United Arab Emirates in general, the country mainly runs on business, right? It's business on different aspects of life. And I think what the government have done over the past few weeks, that they started opening most of the business again back to normal. So now the lockdown is basically from 11 p.m. to 6 in the morning. And in the working hours from 6 to 11, everything is running pretty normal. Malls are open, restaurants and cafes are open. Now, that definitely has an impact on our practice as well, because still people, they do understand the fact that COVID is still running and that we are probably going to be suffering from this for a long time. But the fact that the government has taken an implementation to open the businesses back, that gives people a little bit of confidence of getting out of home and going to the clinics, going to the hospital to be examined. And we noticed that once the lockdown hours were decreased, that the number of patients coming to our clinics are much higher than before, especially over the first week of the opening of the lockdown. We got like a 400% increase in the number of patients coming to the clinic, which was crazy. Yeah, so I think they have a good thing here is people have confidence in the decisions of their government, which is great, and they have good faith that the people around them are implementing the regulations run by the government as well.
So when you say things are opened up, does that mean gatherings again? Large gatherings are allowed? I mean, the big challenge right now has been, you may have seen what's happening in North America or heard of what's happening in North America. There have been large demonstrations for a variety of political reasons as well. But, there are thousands and thousands of people that were coming together. That's led to some concern that there might be risk of more transmission of the virus. Likely it's going to happen. And likely it's going to happen in younger individuals because we're seeing that transmission happening as well. What's happening in Dubai regarding large gatherings?
So large gatherings are still on hold, definitely. Okay. And, basically, if you're going to a restaurant, you cannot be more than 5 sitting on one table. If you're a family of 4, you cannot get in a single car to go to a mall, to go for an outing or something like that. Maximum of 3 persons per car. They're pretty strict with those regulations. As you mentioned, what's happening in America right now, which is pretty unfortunate actually, because not just for the political side of it, but actually for the health side of it as well, with the COVID and thing. Yeah, we'll definitely see more people getting infected over the coming few weeks. And I think it's something that at this point, I believe that we have to accept and to deal with, to try to avoid it as much as we can, but we need to understand that it is happening and that there is a certain percentage of our population that's going to be infected with COVID.
And when you talk to your patients, what is their current concern? I mean, things were very heightened against COVID concern very early on. Depending on where you are in the phase of infections rising or reopening, that changes. What are the primary concerns of your patients right now or the community? Is COVID still the biggest cause of concern, or are they now moving beyond it a little bit?
Well, COVID is still the elephant in the room, right? Whenever you're talking to a patient or something, or you're proposing a surgery to one of your patients, their biggest concerns is, well, I don't want to go to the hospital because if I go over there, I think I'm going to get infected.
Right.
And my answer to them is usually, well, if there is an infected person in the hospital, at least you know that this is a guy who has COVID and you're avoiding getting in contact with him, unlike walking into a mall where probably few people around you are infected with COVID, and you have a higher chance of getting infection over there. The other thing as well is, so now the hospitals were not making a lot of money over the past few weeks with all the lockdown, and the elective surgeries were on hold and stuff, but they were making good money from admitting COVID patients as well, right? So the government is paying directly to the private practice, to the private hospitals, to get the COVID patients admitted over there, and that's direct payment instead of waiting for the insurance companies to pay for the regular patients, the regular surgeries. So there was this period of time, probably around a month ago, where patients were really skeptical and really afraid to go to hospitals because there was this understanding that this is a COVID hospital, labeled as a COVID hospital. But I think patients now, they have a better understanding. Every single person probably has a person in his family who got infected with COVID, or a relative or a friend. So I think the fear of COVID is going to go down over time. It's not going to be as great as it is in the in the right time or the past few weeks.
And do you see yourself traveling at all? I think one of the biggest issues we've seen is in most countries that have been very successful within the country or also internationally has stopped travel. Don't let other cases come in from other places. If you think about how coronavirus spread, there was an incident case and it was travel. That's what led it to the massive, pandemic that it became very quickly. I think we've learned from that. What's your take right now on resuming either travel within the UAE or broadly, even internationally?
So Dubai actually has a very unique situation, is that Dubai airport is probably the biggest international airport in the world, and it's a transit to most of the flights to the Far East, and then to North America and South America as well, with Emirates being one of the largest companies in the world. But and I think so far we don't have any plans on. They started opening the airports a little bit to few destinations, to like 14 or 16 destinations, but they're not rushing things. They're going very slow. They're, every day we have different data from the day before.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that we learned with COVID as well, and that they're very slow taking decisions on opening the airports. But I believe traveling is going to be different from the traveling that we used to be in before in the pre-COVID era. They are preparing the airports with all the sanitizers, checking temperature, all of those stuff. But I don't think that will be, as you said, will not be back to normal, I guess, not before a year from now. Or as Dr. Fauci said, the new normal, not just normal.
The new normal, and the thing is, it's interesting. It almost appears that airplanes are having to reorganize their seating in a way that you can only have a certain number of people, quote, physically distanced at a certain. I don't know if they're removing the center seat. Some airlines are saying we've just removed our center seat, and all these, additional costs. It's an inevitability that the cost of flying is going to double what it used to be, which suddenly means flying will become a luxury of those who have, and definitely not an opportunity for those who have not. Whereas before, there was enough balance in the system. Do you fear that that's also going to happen with respect to now? Yeah, in Dubai, I suspect that there's a lot of people who have the ability to travel and fly, but in many parts of the world, it may become too cost prohibitive because they're going to have to. Half the number of people in a plane means double the price if they want to keep that plane flying. It's at least one of the basic mathematical balances you have to think about.
Absolutely, and right. If you think about mathematically, and you're probably one of the biggest researchers yourself, so that's definitely simple math means definitely more money to get a seat on a flight, right? And it's pretty challenging. I mean, we don't know what the consumer behavior is going to be after COVID. To be honest with you, it's not just that they're going to get more expensive. I think consumers now understand that their way of spending money is a little, even in a country like the UAE where the per capita is high, but people are very careful with spending money on unnecessary stuff, because a couple of months ago they were under the impression that they will be fighting over toilet paper, right? So so who knows in the future if they're going to need that money for another emergency. It's going to be very challenging for the companies as well, including the airlines, because they want to promote themselves, and at the same time they want to they have very high costs to run those flights. It's going to be a very tricky situation. I also want to add something, that it's not just with the flights and everything. Like in our courses in AO spine or in AO trauma, when we prepare such courses, now that users or members are used to attending free webinars, right?
Right.
You get everything for free now. I wonder if we do courses after COVID and then we charge members or for a cadaveric course like $2,000, for example. Will members be able to pay for that, or they just got used to attending free webinars online and free activities online? So it's definitely something that needs to be studied after we're over with this.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that's an important point that nobody knows, right, Sam? In that, as someone like yourself who's chairing, a very large organization and trying to give educational courses, the way that these entities stayed healthy and survived was that we'd have a real desire for surgeons around the world to connect. They'd come in physically, they'd meet, and in part of the meeting, the social interaction is part of the value, of these courses. When you put something online, while it's much, much more efficient for everybody, it isn't the same as sitting and having a coffee or whatever, maybe having a chat with somebody. And I think that's the difference. And the question is, there are groups trying to find ways in which they can use the online platform like we're talking and try to charge almost the same rates. I mean, I've seen some groups charging the same types of rates for their courses online. But defense of that is going to be very difficult. Why? Your point's well taken. For every course that you could pay for, you could find 20 more of the same topic that are free. And that's the marketplace that we're in. And I think it's a new way in which we think as an organization. It's a new way in which you as a leader will have to be thinking. And I'm sure you're doing all that. But I can't thank you enough for taking, a little bit of time out of your day to give us some insights about Dubai, Sam. It's been really, really enlightening, and particularly important to see that in so many other areas, we're seeing a changing epidemiology of, injury. We're seeing a changing epidemiology of pain and all kinds of musculoskeletal disease, simply because people have shifted the way they think or they move. And that in itself is very interesting. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the invitation, and pleasure being with you.